Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm Jeremy Bramblett. I'm a senior lecturer and associate department head in the Department of Biology, Geology, and Environmental Science at UTC. I'm not a meteorite specialist. I'm really an anatomist. I primarily teach anatomy and microscopic anatomy histology.
This would be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, and for the past 6 weeks, I was teaching intro bio during the summer, and so my brain is full of cells and gene expression. I did study this a little bit before I got here. This is a variation on a talk I gave a few months ago, right here. And I do teach in geology. I teach historical geology, which is kind of a mix of biology and geology. I have a degree in geology as well. Okay, so you guys already know this, but just give you a little bit of a few definitions, right? So meteoroids, just bits of rock in space, right? And meteors are the shooting stars, that you see. You guys are familiar with that.
How small is small?
How small? Oh, well, it could be pieces of dust.
Right.
It could be bigger than this room. Right? Yeah. So I don't know where the planetoid boundary is, but I'm sure somebody's defined it somewhere. Right? And then meteorites are the bits of rock that actually hit Earth. Right? And there are different ways of classifying them. This is sort of the typical way. You've got stony meteorites, right? Mostly just things like olivine and pyroxene. Stony iron meteorites, so a mix of nickel iron and then the olivine and pyroxene. And then the iron meteorites are mostly just pure iron. And we'll see examples of those out here. And also, Kevin and I put together a display here as well, so you guys can have a look at it. Yeah. So this is just showing you some of those types here. The stony meteorites, they're the chondrite meteorites, which are the most common. And then there are the achondrite meteorites, and we'll talk about some of the different subtypes there. Stony iron, pallasites, and mesositerites, and then the irons. The stony meteorites usually are either undifferentiated from undifferentiated bodies or from the surface of larger bodies. Right? The stony iron meteorites often occur in differentiated bodies where you have sort of a core mantle interface. And then the iron meteorites often are from differentiated bodies where it's really the core of the meteorite. So you think of the Earth, right? You've got a crust, a mantle, a core, and in some of these larger asteroids, they actually differentiate themselves in a similar way. This is a classification scheme. Different types of meteorites, carbonaceous meteorites, ordinary chondrites, and these different types. Incitite is interesting because we have an incitite meteorite from your group. One cool thing about Tennessee is that there are a lot of planetary geoscientists up in Knoxville. And they wrote one of the classic textbooks on planetary geoscience. Here. All right. These are just some pictures, right, of a slab. This is a carbonaceous chondrite. You can actually see the chondrules here, these little round structures here. All right. These carbonaceous chondrites are very primitive meteorites. Got examples out there. This is NWA 869, which is it's a Regalobreccia. So it's made up of lots of different types of meteorites kind of fused together. And this is a very common one. It's a cool one to look at. Lots of different things you can see under the microscope. And it's just very, very common. I think you can get these for about $2 a gram.
How do you describe those chondrules you pointed out?
Yeah. So there's one right there. It's a large one.
They're just deposits of different minerals?
Yeah, different. We'll see under the microscope in a minute. But they're just little spheres of rocky material.
They're cool at a different rate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Different chemistries and different crystal sizes. There are lots of different types. We'll see some of them. This is an NWA69. Actually, you can see some of the chondrules here. You can see some of the brecciated nature of this as well. There's another chondrule. This is a radial pyroxene, and that's a barred olivine. This is under cross-polarized light. Oh, so polarization. Amber, do you mind flipping on the lights for a second? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll show you in a minute the types of microscopes that we use to generate these images. But you guys all know about optics, right? So this is a polarizing filter, right? And so that would represent, plain polarized light under one of these microscopes. If we add a second polarizing filter and then we cross them, pretty much no light's coming through,
right?
And that's under a cross-polarized light. And so the minerals will refract the light going through, and then you get these different interference colors or birefringence. So, and we can use that to help identify the type of mineral that's there. And, okay, Amber, we're good. And so that's what you're seeing here. This is just cross-polarized light. This is sand that's embedded, so the meteorite is embedded in epoxy, and then the sand is used to get the thickness correct. So most of the sand is quartz, and they look for these first-order gray colors for interference colors. And that's what we're seeing there. This is with a gypsum plate inserted. That kind of kicks the interference colors up a bit, so you can actually see some things that you wouldn't normally see.
Is that what you took out from there?
No, this one doesn't have a gypsum plate in it. But we could stick a little piece of gypsum in there, a little gypsum filter. But here are some of the chondrules. So this is olivine. That's olivine. There's a pyroxene right there. Some of these will form a radial.
What's the chemistry makeup of olivine?
So magnesium, iron, silicate. This is an L3 ordinary chondrite. So those numbers, if we get back real quick, have to do with the amount of metamorphism that these bodies have undergone. And so L3 is very little metamorphism. So you get a kind of a more pristine look at the chondrule composition in these types of meteorites. And this is one of those. So those are the chondrite meteorites. The achondrite meteorites, this is a regolith breccia thought to be from asteroid 4 Vesta. So this is a bunch of different rock types that are formed on the surface that got kicked off and then eventually landed on Earth. So no chondrules. This is basically a basalt from asteroid 4 Vesta, thought to be from asteroid 4 Vesta. So rather than being on the surface, it's still on the surface, but it's not a brecciated, sort of rock, not made up of stuff from deeper and more superficially. This is another meteorite. This is a chondrite or an achondrite meteorite. All right, this is from asteroid 4 Vesta, but it's deeper. It's an orthoperoxenite, so it's got large crystals. It looks green in this. And so it's plutonic. The crystals have a longer time to grow, so they got a little bit bigger.
So how would that have gone now?
Still, an impact, knocked it off, and then landed on Earth.
Deep enough impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody recognize the name of this?
Tattoo,
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah. And this was discovered, I think, in the 1920s. So, anyway.
Well, it predates Star Wars.
It does, yeah. So there's a little town, and I forget exactly. There's one out here. You guys can have a look at it. But it was one of the inspirations for the name of the planet Tatooine when they shot it back in the 70s. This is a lunar feldspathic breccia. So this is from the moon. It's from the lunar highlands. Lots of feldspar in there, and orthosite primarily is what you can see in this. This is a Martian shergotite. It's basically a basalt. It's a porphyritic basalt with shocked olivine, and the plagioclase has been turned to glass as a result of the impact. We had this one actually in section, so I'll show you pictures of it. So here it is under plain polarized light. You can see the large, so it's a porphyry, meaning it's got some large crystals and a smaller crystalline matrix. These olivines here are the big crystals, and it's sometimes referred to as toasted olivine because it's got shock features. It's kind of a brown color. The white that you see here is actually glass. So when whatever impacted Mars and kicked this stuff out of Mars's gravity and landed on Earth, when it impacted Mars, it actually melted the plagioclase feldspar. We'll see that a little bit better when we look at the gypsum plate version of this. This is just cross-polarized light. The olivines have some zoning in them too, which is kind of interesting. Notice the glass here is kind of a pink color. And so if you look at this a little bit closer, that's in the shape of a plagioclase lath, a crystal, but it's glass. It's been turned to glass. That glass is called maskelinite, and that's one of the indications that this is from Mars. That's what we see from Mars. Also, you'll see these little melt pockets that are present in these shock features in the olivine. This could happen on Earth, right? You could hit, ocean basin and get a similar sort of thing. But so far as we know, this is sort of is what we see from Mars.
So the glass is formed by heat of the impact.
Yep.
Do we see any effects of it entering our atmosphere? Turning things to glass?
No.
Interesting.
Just when it gets, when it got hit. And there are ways of calculating what the impact force was, and that matches the escape velocity for Mars when they do those calculations.
Interesting.
This is a palisite meteorite. Those are olivine crystals there, and then this is an iron nickel. This is again thought to represent kind of a mantle core boundary of one of those differentiated, bodies, a small planetesimal or large asteroid. This is another type of stony iron meteorite. This one is interesting. It doesn't have as much iron in it in this particular slice as I think you would expect. This is your classic sort of iron meteorite, what most people think of. This one has been etched, and you can see the kamacite and the teenite. That's the Widmanstätten pattern as a result of being etched with nitrile. There's just a regular stony meteorite. Right? So what you were seeing earlier were those images. It's one way of sort of analyzing these rocks. So you take a meteorite or any kind of rock and get it sliced about 30 microns thick as standard, which is about the third of the thickness of a piece of copy paper. It's mounted on a glass slide, and then you can analyze its optical properties.
How do you slice that? How do you slice that?
So, well, we can do it at UTC. We have the equipment to do it, but it's easier just to send it off and have it done.
Right.
So there are diamond embedded saw blades that cut it, and then you put it on these machines, and they grind them down to that 30 microns.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Because 30 of these pretty small.
It's pretty small.
Yeah.
I've done it myself. Kevin, have you made thin sections?
I did in grad school.
Yeah, it's a pain in the rear.
Takes forever.
And sometimes if you're not
It's fun.
too careful, you wind up grinding all your rock away.
Is that what we were talking about with the sand? To give you a reference for how deep your
Yeah, how thick it is. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Not all of the commercial companies do that, but many of them do. Especially if you ask for a polished thin section. I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is a standard sort of petrographic microscope. It's transmitted light. It's got a rotating stage so that you can measure extinction angles on the minerals. This machine here is a modified biology microscope that is computer controlled. This is controlled by human hands. But with this one, what we can actually do is take individual thin sections and create these mosaics of images. So with a standard sort of petrographic thin section, about 400 individual images are stitched together, so you can actually view it. I heard you guys talking earlier, because I was out there, about difficulties with some of the imaging, like JPEGs and stuff. We run into the exact same problem. This creates a TIFF file that is about 4 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes in size. Yeah. And then depending on what version of Photoshop you use, sometimes you can create a JPEG that's about 150 megabytes in size without very much of a loss of resolution. Sometimes that's visible or you can upload that file to like Google Photos and it works. Other times it doesn't. So I've been having to use Flickr to share those images because it will accept those. That's kind of, if any of you know anything about images and you want to talk to me about that, I would appreciate it. Okay. So this is just showing you that process. This is just a rock from Lake
That's
Superior.
just granite. Come on.
Yeah, it's a nice. So it's a little metamorphic, rock. And this was for a student project back in the spring. You can actually see the bits of sand that they embedded in this epoxy. And then I polished it so that the students could study it. This is Abapanu, which is one of those ordinary chondrite meteorites that's not very metamorphosed. The reason we use the blue epoxy so that we can tell the difference between what's rock and what's the sand around it. So that's one method, right? So we observe these meteorites or analyze them optically. Another thing we can do is look at X-ray diffraction. So what you do, this is a sand from Hawaii, and then you powder it, which is what I have on hand, and you powder it, and then you send it to Knoxville, and they analyze it, and they can actually tell us what the mineral composition is. And now they're able to give us approximate percentages, which is kind of nice. And I'll show you some of that data here. We can also, the thin sections that we're getting for the meteorites are polished. We can do electron microprobe analysis where you can get elements. Another method would be to powder the rock and then use inductively coupled plasma mass spectroscopy, ICP-MS, and that gives you isotope data. The issue that we're running into right now in the lab at Knoxville that does ICP-MS charges by the day and not the sample. So it's really expensive to do that. So
What wavelength did you say they're using in that diffraction facility?
it varies. So if you look, this is the output right there.
Oh, okay.
So it's X-ray diffraction. I don't know what the specifics are.
Is that what Curiosity had on board?
I have no idea. Anybody know? Curiosity, what kinds of instruments Curiosity have? I don't know.
They had the X-ray diffraction.
Yeah. So we did have a student go up with a colleague of mine and do some electron microprobe work on some of the meteorites from here. Okay. So we have these students in geology. They're tasked with doing a senior project as a capstone project. So they come up with a proposal. It's a 2-hour course, and then they then come up with methods and what their research question is, and in the spring they actually conduct the research. And so we had a student, or several students actually, interested in meteorites, and talked to Kevin, and the Barnard Astronomical Society had some meteorites, suspected meteorites, and so we randomly chose 3 of them, right, based on the magnetic properties. I'm not sure how that was determined.
So those were already written on the bags.
Okay.
Tom, I would need your or some other member's assistant, like if they know when and how we got these. We've had them for decades. And they were in a box.
Bill and the Lord bought them, I think, way back, and sold them.
Yeah, so there was a tub in the basement that was unsorted, unknown, that Bobby Thompson knew that they were part of that purchase. And I guess some were hand-picked from that and estimated with a magnet on how strong they were, put in baggies, and way back in the day, I think they were planning on just selling them to raise money.
I've got one.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Did you buy it, or did you?
I think I bought it.
Okay. So we've had these for a really long time, and most of them don't even know if they are really meteorites or not.
Right.
Amy Brockhahn, my wife, who's also in the department, took some of the ones that weren't in baggies, just ones that were just in a tub randomly, and had some students initially look at those. And a lot of them were determined they were not, just by basic. But these in the baggies were selected as either being weak, medium, or strong, and how magnetic were they were, and that's all I know. And so it was like, okay, there's probably about 3 dozen of those baggies or whatever we had that were chosen by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we just randomly picked one of each just for students to go, okay, let's see what the difference is, and are these really meteorites?
Mm-hmm.
That was really kind of it.
You can see they look the same.
But a great way
quite
for a
similar.
student to like learn how to differentiate them, and let's see what that means.
Yeah.
The weak, the strong, and the medium, that was done by having a magnet, and you move the meteorite
Yeah.
along the side and see how much it deflects.
Okay.
With
That's
a little
perfect.
bit, none a little bit, or more than a little
Yeah.
bit.
Seems pretty objective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is the kicker. And I don't, it's just like there's not just meteorites that can be magnetic.
Mhm.
So
Like I say, it's the first. It's a pretty good chance.
It's a
They
good
aren't-
test. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, no, it's,
I mean,
It's not definitive.
but you're right. You look at that; they all three look the
There's a
same.
chance they're meteorites.
And they were given a classification, this EL3 classification. So it was kind of interesting. I don't know how you would tell that from looking at them like this. So the students came up with a plan. Actually, one student, Zane Coley, worked on these. And the plan was to have thin sections made. And I brought one of these thin sections actually. And then we wanted to do some geochemical analysis. Initially, we wanted to do the ICP-MS, but the cost was prohibitive. And so we sent it off for X-ray diffraction. We have that data. So this was the first one, the strong one. So we had a thin section made. And if you look, there are actually obvious chondrules in this one. And chondrules you don't get in earth rocks. So that's a meteorite. You can actually see some of the nice chondrules there. There's a pretty radial pyroxene right there.
Why don't you get chondrules in earth rocks?
It's just because of the way they formed in space, and these little, these spherical things. But there's a lot of debate on exactly how they form. But it's thought when either a shock wave or the sun ignited, it melted this dust around the sun and created these little spheres of olivine and pyroxene. And we just don't see that.
And they
Yeah,
get
earth
balled
rocks.
up with the rest of the
Yeah.
carbonaceous material.
And so this one is a meteorite, and it came back with olivine and pyroxene, which is what we would expect. Which also confirmed what we saw in the thin section. So that's a meteorite. And this is an SEM image of one of those radial pyroxenes. The lighter stuff is heavier elements, and then the darker stuff is lighter elements. And I don't have the actual analysis on that particular chondrule, so I don't really know what it means. But it's a chondrule, and it's a SEM data. So when you have a meteorite and you want to properly classify it, you take 20 grams of material or 20%, whatever is less. That has to go to a repository, but then you do these various analyses, and you need to have either a polished billet or a thin section analyzed with the scanning electron microprobe to get that data. And then once it's classified, then you can publish that data in the meteoritical bulletin and give it a name or whatever. So that's the next step that Zane's going to be working on. Probably not in the fall, but in the spring with those meteorites. This is the medium one. It's an earth rock. So there were no chondrules in it. And when we did the XRD analysis, it's got goethite, which is an iron oxide, and quartz. You don't really find much quartz in space rocks. So it's just an earth rock. This one, the weak one. So this turned out to be a meteorite. There aren't, in this image, you don't really see anything that sort of jumps out as a chondrule because it's been highly metamorphosed. But when we got this data back, it had instatite, albite, and goethite. The goethite it's just the iron that's been oxidized because it's been sitting on Earth's surface for a while. The albite is a feldspar, the instatite's a pyroxene. So we weren't sure which minerals were which. Kind of difficult to identify optically. So we sent the billet back to get thin sectioned and then stained, and the stain didn't take. So I don't know why it didn't work. But yeah, it was staining for feldspar, but it just was a weak stain. But when we analyzed this optically, guess what we saw? Chondrules. Same rock, same sample, just another slice through it, and we saw them. And so the student identified these as EL6 contracts because of the amount of instantite that's present. One other thing that you guys might think about doing, I think someone told me about this earlier about looking for micrometeorites. So you can actually do this at your home. Right? Go to your downspouts and get all the magnetic material and then get it under a microscope like this, and you look for little spheres like that. That's a pollen grain for scale. I don't have the scale. I just did this at home. But that little spherule there and that one, they could be meteorites, or it could be a result of fireworks. So fireworks generate very similar sorts of
I found a bunch
spherules.
of those on the 80s.
So I don't know. That's kind of all I had. It's been a cool sort of thing to have these students work on these projects.
How did it go
They
with
get to
the
go through all this
students?
Hmm?
How did the students?
They had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun. So another student was working on that Martian surgotite, but the one student was working with those 3 BAS meteorites, and they had a blast. So it goes through all the scientific process, and they actually went up to Knoxville and worked on the electron microscope. I was teaching, so I didn't do it. So they got to do quite a bit. Kind of fun.
Do you have anyone in town that actively goes out and searches for these?
Not that I know of.
We got a guy in Minneapolis who goes out in Antarctica.
Yep.
And you find a rock on the ice. That's your
That's what
space.
it is, right?
I go to Kansas and just anything on the grass.
Yeah, so deserts. You know, a lot of the stuff comes from Northwest Africa.
Yeah.
It's being traded through Morocco.
The story on those is we bought a 25-pound box off eBay of these meteorites.
Mhm.
And luckily, some of them turned out to be real meteorites.
Yeah.
And,
The meteorites are not rare. They're all they're all over the place. Hit Earth all the time. And then they've got people wandering over those deserts in Africa. And they wind up at these markets. And if you know what you're doing, you can pick them out. They're not that expensive. They're just a few bucks a gram usually. I mean, some of the Martian and the newer stuff's a little more expensive.
I think we paid less than $100
Yeah.
for that 20 pounds.
Do you know when that was? You might have told me when you were telling me the story, and I can't remember.
I know I was president of the BAS at the time. But I
And you approved that
see what
purchase?
It was quite a while
Sand
ago.
on the car. I'll give you for $20.
Well, the intent was hopefully to piecemeal them out and sell them and make some more money for the club, right?
Well, yeah, or just give
Just
the
to-
club members a chance to have a meteorite.
I mean,
Yeah.
on the 2009 plus or minus 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But that'd be nice
That's before me.
data to have.
I'm new. I'm like 2016.
So some of the small meteorites that were core size. What?
These are the only 3 that we.
Say how big they were when they entered the atmosphere? How much did they
Right.
I have no idea. It must be much bigger. I don't know. Again, I'm an anatomist, right? So
Now you're a meteorite specialist.
That's right, man.
I know I've learned a little bit, but there's a lot I don't know. But it's a fun project to work with undergraduate students on.
I get my money back. It's a rock.
Talk to Tom.
It's a rock. I get my money back, man.
Thank you for your donation.
You'll have to prove that.
We
it's
won't
not
tell
a
anybody.
meteorite.
Yeah, prove it. That cost me how much?
Tom suckered everybody in.
I have
sections
a
are about 30
anecdote
bucks.
about this.
Give it to me, I'll write a hymn on it.
I would carry some of these around to give to people who are interested that I found from the society.
Okay.
And there was a fellow who worked at McKay's as a cashier, and we were talking, he was interested in astronomy and such, so I reached my pocket and gave him a meteorite. And I found out later, I think it was from him later on, that he took part of it and put it in the engagement ring for his fiance because their first date was to go see a meteor shower.
Oh, wow. That's
Cool.
Tom, you
I hope
contributed
it
to
was
True
me,
Love.
right?
I do. It looks like we got about two-thirds
Yeah, so
probability.
far we're
That's pretty good.
About
2/3
60%.
is not bad. Where's 2/3 of my Oh, we're being recorded, right?
I found out at one star party, you do not call those falling stars because somebody saw one at the star party. There was a lady standing next to me. What was that? Well, it was a meteor, falling star. And when I said falling star, she got this weird look on her face and said, "Falling star? Well, if they're falling, why are there still stars up there?" Okay.
How old was this lady? What was her generation?
She was older.
Everybody knows that. Don't they?
She did.
Oh my goodness.
One said this flat earthers the other day. It's amazing what people believe.
Well, I mean, it's a very intelligent woman asked me one time when I was young, in the, I guess during the first moon programs, how the space capsules got there. I don't know if I can use, but without hitting stars.
My case. Ain't between them easy.
Yeah.
That's why we promote astronomy outreach. Education.
Well, I mean, it's amazing. I'm sure there are subjects that the woman knew about that I would have asked the same.
Absolutely.
Dumb a question in her subject if she asked about that.
The Bible says the harvest is great, but the workers are few.
Well, I want to thank the BAS for providing the samples for the student to work on.
That's pretty cool.
It was a
I
fun
think
project.
there's plenty more.
There's plenty more. I mean, we're getting displays out of it. We're gathering information about them.
Yeah.
They're learning and going on, and
You
I
could
think it's a
repeat this the
win-win.
next semester or something.
You could. Yeah, we actually have one. It's not from BAS, but another source. I've got one. It's being worked on right now.
Have you seen collections in other places?
Collections.
Meteorite collections.
Oh, I mean, I've seen them at Telus and at other museums.
Tellus,
but-
yeah.
Where's the biggest?
I have no idea.
No, like the biggest collection that you have seen.
Probably Field Museum in Chicago.
Oh,
That's probably
sure.
the biggest I can think
I'll
of.
be at Tellus Saturday.
So,
I'll be there in August.
And they have
when I was there,
incredible
looking at other
collections.
stuff. Not meteorites.
If you're a geologist, I'm not sure Amy loves that place. Has you ever been?
Which one? Oh yeah.
Tellus.
She takes students on the back
It's fabulous.
room. They've stuff. Yeah.
If anyone's been up to the Dark Sky Observatory in Boone, it's run by App State, they have they do like public nights every month, and they have on display I think it's like $50,000 worth of meteorites that are on loan from his name's Don Klein. He actually owns Perry in his Astronomical Research Institution in
Oh, yeah.
Brevard.
That's where our orrery is right now.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you get a chance, there's a huge collection up there.
Off topic, I didn't know it. Driving through Odessa, Texas, there's a meteor impact there.
Sure.
And they have a little park and a little museum, and it's loaded full of meteorites. It was really surprising. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Is there still a prayer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can go walk it and everything. Just beware of rattlesnakes. But yeah, it's tiny. It's less than a couple 100 feet across.
You're walking in Florida, you gotta watch out for alligators.
What's
But
the
it's kind of neat.
What's the real famous one? Is it Arizona? New
Yeah,
Mexico?
the meteor Behringer crater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big is that?
It's all about a mile.
It's about a mile. Yeah, 500 feet or so deep. It's pretty good size.
You'd notice it.
Hudson Bay is another one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Never been to it, but
Nor have I, but that is, allegedly a meteor.
yeah,
Crater.
And then, Kevin, you guys have shatter cones from Wells Creek.
we do. So there's a couple meteor impacts, definitely 2, if not 3 in Tennessee. Ralph and some other BAS members back in the 70s were allowed to get in. Sorry to date you, Ralph. Were able to go collect them. There was a big meteor impact in Wells Creek up near Cumberland City. And you can't even get it. State geologists can't even gain access to that anymore because TVA owns it. We've tried to get students, and so luckily Ralph, and he's donated a few for the display over here.
And
Which is
none of
really
them, man, they were great big.
Yeah, so basically when that meteor, I gave actually a talk on that not too long, but like that sucker comes in and hits so hard that rock just goes, and the whole rock all over, you just see these little, literally they look like little cones, and they're down there. They're really unique, and they're world famous.
We found some rocks that were pretty.
Can we raise the
size,
house
they're
last
just
night?
cones,
Yeah,
just
amber.
fall in it, and you
Oh,
can
yeah.
sit there and peck on it, and fall apart.
Whoa.
Wow, time to get up.
Wake up.
So I know you've got the microscope set up for
Yeah.
people. Do you want me to help?
They can just look around. You can
Okay.
touch anything you want to.
Okay.
What's on the table out there?
So more meteorites. Some of the meteorites we talked about
Oh.
here. Same meteorites over here, but those you can actually touch if you want. And then there's a QR code here with images of these and I think some additional data. I can't remember. On that. And I'm here to entertain questions if you have one or anything.
Thank you very much.
Probably my answer will be I don't know.
Just look at the